All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year 2025. Crazy things are already happening, and we're not even 24 hours in. So, Karen and I are going to jump on here and let you guys know kind of what 2025 is going to look like for us and what we can share with you guys and what's going to be super important on our journey through 2025. So a couple updates for us. We are going to start going to once a month podcasts the first Wednesday of every month. So February 5th will be our next full launch podcast. We have a new course coming out in January. I was hoping to get it out in December, but we're going to get it out for January, and that's our trust course, our introduction to trust. That's where you're really going to learn what you need, how you need to do it as you're learning through building a trust and getting it right. And then we are going to keep us at an hour. We'll still do 6 p.m. on those first ones. And we're going to put some more content into our website and sharing some more info with you guys so that we can really get the education out that we're looking to have you guys benefit from, that I think is going to be different, as a lot of people have been moving through these last couple of years, learning a lot of different things, maybe getting stuck in a lot of places. We really want to help you guys work through, some of those stuck spots and just thinking a little bit differently. That's kind of our mantra for the first quarter of 2025 anyway, is really that spiritual and emotional connection that we should have that maybe we're disconnected from. I'll have Karen touch on that before we're done. But we're going to jump in and kind of let you know our highlights for 2025. We are going to start with the principal and agent conversation, talking about our roles, talking about our relationships with entities. Karen, I'll have you jump in on this topic and give a brief explanation of what's so important about principal and agent.
Well, the agent is the one that's acting on behalf of, right? So if it's your LLC, the agent is the one that's signing the contract for the LLC. If you're talking about a sole proprietor, then you're the agent signing that contract for the sole proprietor that's actually on the paper, right? So it's really important to understand that I'm separate from that. However, a lot of people that we contract with don't understand, why would I sign a contract in my all caps government entity that I do contracts with and then put my autograph and then /agent? They see that as craziness. And so we really need to be understanding, how are we actually presenting our autographs and in what role are we actually signing them? So we just need to understand that better, because the person that, or individual that's receiving the contract with our autographs on it, doesn't have the same knowledge that we have. So we just need to better prepare and educate them better and make sure that we understand, what are we separating ourselves from and how are we representing that, indicating that on the paper. So
yeah, because that's going to be good. Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be huge as we talk about our trust course. Like, you really have to understand, what capacity are you working in? How are you representing that? What is the entity that's driving what you're trying to accomplish? And, what is your role in that? So, when we talk about attorney in fact, or your own attorney general, I think one of the things I've heard a lot of lately is somebody will say, well, you need to go get an attorney for that. Okay, that's where we need that thinking to start shifting, right? Because you are your own attorney if you know what you're doing and you know the capacity of the law. So those are some things we'll touch on.
I just want to add too, is that the very first place you're actually recognized as an agent is when you call the IRS and you actually ask them for an EIN number. You, right there in that transaction, they are recognizing you as the agent for that EIN, right? So that's the very first place. So we just need to be able to recognize that and then move that forward through our own actions.
Yeah, because I think a lot of what people have come across, especially in the last couple of years that I've been learning through all of this, is, why don't the people on the other end do what they're supposed to do, right? We'd all be in a much better place if everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. So how do we navigate around that? And that's really understanding, you've got to build some relationships. You can't just go in and expect these people to know what you're talking about. and there's a certain level that knows what you're talking about. So you've really got to understand the processes, the thought behind it, who you're dealing with, and really understanding that almost everyone you're trying to push through certain procedures that you may have learned. The reason you're going to get so much pushback is, one, you're probably dealing with the wrong level of authority. Mm-hmm. And two, you're not in your right level of authority. So, we've got to match up that level of authority, and that comes with the education on knowing, what that looks like. Anything else to add on principal and agent?
No, that's good for now.
All righty. Second one that is super, super important that we're going to go through in Q1 is going to be your power of attorney, and really understanding the roles, who that's between, how security agreements work. I'll let you touch on that one too, on power of attorney and the importance.
So the power of attorney is really the document that actually says I have the authority. And where did my authority come from? My authority came from that individual or entity that gave it to me, right? And so if Tara has a power of attorney done and she makes me the power of attorney, then if she were to get in trouble or she had an issue with the vendor, then as the power of attorney, I can call them up because now I'm working on behalf of her or on behalf of an entity that's granted that to me. And we actually have, as parents, for those of us that are, as parents, we actually have an implied power of attorney over our offspring. The problem is that when we sign them up for school, we are actually granting that power of attorney to the school. So we have things that have been granted to us through that power. However, we've never solidified it and put it in writing. And so the power of attorney actually does that, to cement an actual contract that says, here's my proof that I have the authority. Where's your proof, Verizon? Where's your proof, mortgage company, that you've got the power of attorney? Oh, you don't have it. Therefore, you don't have it. And so that's something that we really need to touch base on as far as walking through what does that really look like? How can you use it?
Right, exactly. And I think that, and I'm not going to dive too far into this topic because we're really going to get into the impact of this going forward. But I'm really starting to learn how many things we gift to others that if we knew better, we wouldn't be so generous. So that goes for a lot of things, right? When it's our application, our taxes, or whatever we're doing, we need to understand what we have said, here you go. And then we want to know why somebody doesn't comply when we're like, give it back. So, so
a perfect example is we go to the store and they ask us, do you want a receipt? No, I don't need a receipt. Well, do you know that you can recoup that? What the heck? What? And then we go to the store and we're like, hey, can you print me out every single transaction I've had with you? And because there's some of us that don't have our phone numbers tied to an actual account because we don't want all the texts or we don't want all the emails, then what happens is they print us out a sheet that's got 4 transactions on it. And we're going, but I come to this store 4 times a week. Where's the rest of my transactions? Well, you granted them that gift when you said thanks, but no thanks. So you're right. We give a lot of stuff away.
Great point. And in one of our courses, it's the Right to Travel course, we talk about the dangers of convenience of electronics or electronic signatures, convenience of paperless things. I will challenge anybody listening to this. I will put it on our website. I will tell everyone I know. I will challenge everyone in 2025. If I told you everything you could prove that you have spent money on, you could get back, would you be prepared? Karen and I both have been natural people to save all of our documents. And I've been chastised for like, holy cow, why do you hang on to this stuff? Well, 10, 15 years ago, I hung on to some pretty important stuff that is of benefit to me now because I don't have to try and chase it down from somebody who's like, yeah, we just don't have access to that anymore. So as you're going through and you start saving receipts, and I'm talking anything you get an invoice for.
Every receipt.
All of your bills, all of your stuff. I mean, it's really hard to go back and do, but if you set your sights on it's January 1st and you got 2025 and start organizing receipts as you move through. And I'm not talking just paper receipts from the grocery store, right? I'm talking about your mortgage receipts, your invoices for a storage unit, your whatever it is that you're spending money on, especially things you spend every month, your utilities, whatever. There's a lot of power in the documentation itself. And when you learn what that all means, you'll then have the understanding on what you can do with it. Correct. So that's going to be huge for people to start understanding, even just change some of your practices until you get some learning in place, because you're going to wish you did. You don't want to get to the end of 2025 and go, crap, I wish I'd have known to save that all year long. So that's going to be huge coming up. Do you want to touch at all any more on power of attorney and the party systems, or we're going to save that for our next podcast?
Let's save that. Let's keep this one short.
Perfect. So then lastly, again, the trust course I mentioned, we're going to do an intro to trust. This is the foundation to your trust. You do not want to miss this, discount it, act like it's boring. It's not something you need. This is really going to answer questions like, how can I do this without an attorney? What are the things I'm going to need and why? What are the questions I need to be asking? And again, if you haven't done any of this before, 2025 is going to be a good way for you to start taking inventory of the things that you have, things that you may not even know are assets, and really defining what that looks like, and getting off of the train of, oh, I'll get to it someday, or I'll just have an attorney write it up. Really what you're paying for when you pay for a trust is you're paying for the time for somebody to ask you the same questions you could ask yourself and put this stuff together. So there's no authority in an attorney doing it. It actually does not help you to have someone else write this for you, because it's your life, your stuff, what you want to do. And again, we've talked about in the past, that changes jurisdiction and everything else. So really learning what that means and how that thought process has to change. I know, Karen, you mentioned as we do more things for ourselves, this is where we're going to learn, right? Action, experience. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing so far and what you hear from people when, action and experience is really what they're looking for, not just tell me how to do these things.
So some of the things I'm seeing is that there's this real spiritual disconnect. They're talking about how they trust God, they believe in God, they have a relationship with God, and I'm seeing all that great. And it's actually played out in some of their interactions and just in how they treat people, right? And so I'm like, great. And then when it comes to standing up for themselves, they are learning so much that then they stay stuck in this perpetual procrastination, because either God isn't present in it to guide them through, or they've put God in a box, and then they're looking at this as a separate issue, in that God's not involved in this, but now I'm too terrified and I'm not going to move forward. And they keep saying, well, when I understand it all, well, we're not going to understand it all. We've got to take what's called a leap of faith, and we just have to do it anyway. And half of our courage is going to come from doing it and it working, and the other half of our courage is going to become because we did it and it failed miserably. We take more counsel, and then we're like, okay, now I'm scared, but I'm still going to try and move through this and see if I can fix the mess I made or still correct it. So a lot of the courage that we're looking for is only going to come after the experience of doing, right? And so I just want to encourage people that no matter how afraid you are, no matter how much you believe in God, know how much you have a relationship with God, that it's still going to push you outside that box of your comfort zone. No matter how much you have, there's still going to be some event you haven't prepared for. There's always going to be some conversation you weren't equipped for. There's always going to be some pushback that you're just like, I don't know how to respond to that. You will have that. Well, this is a new time, and none of us have ever lived through this before. So as long as we build our community and can have those conversations or start those conversations with people we've never met before, then our success is better equipped to be successful.
Yep, absolutely. Like building that village around you. And my gosh, with the internet, you can go as far as you want to, as far as learning from others and being in community. Encourage everybody, do not do this by yourself. That's where a lot of that fear is going to come in, because you're going to second guess yourself and you're not going to know. And somebody's going to give you some little tip that they did that makes perfect sense. And now you feel a little bit better equipped to step over the line. So definitely encouraging people to get involved in communities. Obviously, we're not the only outlet out there trying to outreach to people and get you educated. So, I mean, really use your platforms to learn, but don't sit in that box where you're not communicating with other people. We were built for community. God intended for us to live in community, and there's a reason for that. So, again, I totally agree with that spiritual disconnect, the emotional disconnect that lets fear overrun things. And I'll kind of wrap up just our little intro to 2025 because we're not doing a full podcast tonight. We really encourage, you know, a lot of what we've learned and a lot of what we're seeing from everybody is when they role play and they pick up the phone and they listen to each other's phone calls and we see what's going on. And we talk about, you know, what does a false arrest look like? What does it mean for the IRS to show up at your door? Do you slam the door in their face? Like, what do you do? You know, what authority do you give them? Are you nice? Are you not nice? You know, that kind of stuff. Being pulled over, what's some simple things? You know, we've talked about that in our Right to Travel course too. But we don't want you guys to sit on our courses and not learn past that either, because as those courses are built, there's always new information from others experiencing things on what that looks like. What Karen and I personally know somebody that, not that I recommend this, but you put a person in the car and go figure it out, you know, just, I mean, if that's how you think that person's going to learn best and they're willing, you know, sometimes that's the best way to learn, trial by fire. I mean, we've all done it, right? We've done it in jobs, we've done it in whatever, but how about we do it on our terms now instead of somebody else's terms? And I think that's really the whole point of what Empowered Learning is trying to do, is understand that everything you've dealt with in the world has, for the most part, been on everyone else's terms. So how do you now start flipping that onto, I have control, I know what to do, I'm going, just have it in your head, you're going to get pushback. And then if you know at least one thing to say if you get pushback, great. If you make a phone call and you get stuck, okay, let me figure that out and I'll give you guys a call back. I mean, there's always a way to get past these things without getting in trouble, without, you know, that person on the other end of the phone has no idea what you're doing. Your fear is in your own head. They have no idea. But you're there to learn, right? Even just, I called the IRS the other day, asked a couple questions on something I needed. Super, super helpful. Yes, you need this, not this. You can use this and you don't need to worry about that. And, you know, it was super helpful. So, you know, just being able to build those relationships. I mean, we have learned that there's a fear, right? I owe somebody money. I'm going to stay on the other end of this conversation. And the only thing I can do is pay this bill. Incorrect. Build relationships, understand who you're dealing with. When your level of authority rises, you understand who you have to deal with. And that's really what we're trying to do, is get you to raise your level of authority, understanding, and put it to practice, so that as you grow in that authority, you start to achieve results instead of always banging your head against the wall and asking somebody else, like, how do I fix this? So you really do learn through your own individual experiences, but everybody's got a little bit of tidbit to add in there. Anything else you want to add before we close out?
No, just that I think 2025 is going to be the year of empowerment for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think somebody asked on Facebook, a friend of mine said, everybody put a positive word, one word for 2025 that starts with the first letter of your first name. And I was like, you know what? So many came to mind, but I literally was like, triumph. That was my word for 2025, was we're going to triumph. I am going to triumph over these things that I'm starting to learn that have not been right for a long, long time. So that only comes with education and testing.
You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, so we will see you guys again on February 5th. You can join us live, 6 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube. We will put out the announcements on social media. Feel free to jump on our website. Again, we're going to be doing more updated content through the month on the website more than we will through podcast, because we're working on some pretty cool stuff going into Q1 for 2025. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you're live, if you're not, we look forward to having you learn more through us in any way that we can help. And definitely subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and we will see you in February. Thanks, guys.